You had your chance and then you blew it.
That is the most absurd statement of the year.
Nice. Nice.
Oh, baby.
I'm in my zone, I'm feeling it.
Live from West St. Paul Studios, it's time for MinneZona Sports Live with DJ Matty C and Paul the Shield Vold.
And this is MinneZona Sports Live. We are back, yes, episode 186. I can't believe it. But without further ado, I am your host, DJ Matty C, a.k.a. Matt Callahan, a.k.a. Callie, a.k.a. Matty C, etc. And all the way from, more on that in a second, but from just not too far away in St. Paul, Minnesota, Mikey Ryne joins us. Mikey, welcome back to the show. Thanks for filling in for Shield tonight. How we doing?
No, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back. I always appreciate being on the show. Paul is a little pre-engaged at this point.
Speaking of which, I'm glad you brought that up, Mikey, because there is a new zoner initiated. Tate Paul Jacob Vold, I believe. So clap out. I think I got that right. If I'm wrong on that, Voldy can correct me. But we welcome Tate, obviously, to the world. Obviously, that's fantastic. I hear everything's going well. Sarah's good, our creative consultant, and Voldy's doing good. Case Vold is now a big brother, his little brother, our big brother, and then his little brother Tate. So congrats to those guys. There's a lot going on, and the Lumberjacks are playing tonight as well. So Voldy's a bit busy guy, but that doesn't mean we have a great show lined up for you tonight. No special segment, but Mikey, we have somewhat of breaking news here.
Oh,
we do. You know, I think this was 10 minutes before the show. Voldy tweets out to Case Keenum about they were doing a golf thing with him. I think Thielen, Kendricks, Harrison Smith, and Voldy tweets out, all of a sudden Case Keenum replies back to Voldy with our MinneZona stuff, and we have laid out the offer to say, Case Keenum, we would love to have you on this show.
Yeah.
So, Case Keenum, if you are watching, we would love to have you on. If you want to come on live right now, I got the link. I can send it to you. Let us know. I will message
Let's
it
get
to
him on.
you. Let's get him on. Let's talk 2017 Vikings and other stuff, too. I mean, we got plenty of stuff. So we will keep an eye on that. And shouts out to Voldy. That's Voldy's guy. Hashtag Keenum's Keepers. So there's a lot going on with that. But with that being said, Mikey, Tater Tot Hot Take tonight. And pun intended, if you catch my drift. The Vikings made a big trade on Friday. They have two first-round picks. Kwesi is cooking. Yeah. He is cooking, and there's a lot to be talked about, especially with Kwesi cooking. It's Tater Tot Hot Take. And then Minnesota Wild, there's an outside shot they'll make the playoffs, but we'll talk about that. No special segment tonight. ARA, we're talking about Ant, obviously, because who wouldn't? There's March Madness stuff to talk about and so much more. So keep tuned in with us. Hit that, hit the chats. Talk to us. We would love to talk to you guys as well. So, Mikey, let's get things going with some Tater Tot Hot Take.
Fresh out of the oven, it's Tater Tot Hot Take.
All right, it is time for some Tater Tot Hot Take, and we're starting with our Minnesota Vikings. Mikey, it's quite apparent right now that the Minnesota Vikings are trying to move up in the draft. The Vikings traded their second-round pick and a couple other picks to the Houston Texans. They receive the 23rd pick in the NFL draft. The Vikings have two first-round picks as of right now. So, with that being said, they're making the moves that they need to. Now, Mikey, before we get into that, since we know the deal, Kirk O'Chains is gone. We held a very emotional tribute to Kirk O'Chains last week with myself and Voldy. I wore the chains, I wore the glasses and everything. I looked goofy, but you know what? Kirk and I, it sucks because I liked Kirk a lot, and I know you did as well. But, Mikey, what are your thoughts on Kirk moving on to Atlanta? For the people that haven't, heard anything regarding your thoughts on that. So, Mikey, what do you got?
Yeah, I think for the Vikings, it's a sad time, unfortunately. Kirk was, I think, the best quarterback we've had for a long time. I've said my case about Kirk a lot of times. We last year, like how much we needed Kirk. I mean, those last couple games with three different quarterbacks was not good. While I'm glad that Kirk got his money, and whoever his agent is, Hall of Famer. 100% Hall of Famer. My goodness. But I think it is probably the time to go, just based off of how much money he wanted. He said it wasn't about the money. It seemed like it kind of was about the money. It might have been more of the long-term contract. I could definitely see that. We could only realistically give him 1 to 2 years, I think, was the timetable I wanted with Kirk and trying to get a quarterback either this year or next year. But I think with how rich this quarterback class is and how much ammo we have now, it's now that's very apparent with getting that trade on Friday for that 23rd overall pick. It was the right time, I think, to try to transition away from Kirk Cousins and try to build the quarterback of the future for this team. But that doesn't mean that I'm very sad to see him go. You expected a level of play out of Kirk, and you saw it every week. Was he going to be the Patrick Mahomes of the team? No, but he was, especially last year, he was a top 5, arguably top 3. Voldy would agree that he was probably in the running for MVP if he doesn't tear his Achilles, because we definitely go above 11, 12 wins, and then we probably make a deep run to the playoffs with how well that defense has gotten. So I'm sad to see him go. I wish him all the best in Atlanta until we play him, and then he can go screw himself. But yeah, no, I'm torn both ways. It's a bittersweet moment.
It is, and I won't dive too much into it since everyone got the whole spiel there. But from what I understand, I did read an article Albert Breer put out. Apparently, he had the inside track of how it all went down. The Vikings and I think Mike McCartney, I believe that's his name,
I think that sounds
agent. Right. Basically, they were in it until, was it Monday that he signed? Yeah, so they were in it until Monday. But then, Atlanta was like, they did. So McCartney and Kirk didn't want a deal that was only 1 to 2 years, because they knew, well, after that 1 or 2 years, you're probably gone after that.
Yeah. 100%.
And Kirk wanted, no, I want people to put in the guarantees that I'm going to be their quarterback. I'm going to be their guy, and I don't necessarily blame him for doing that. I won't go into the details, but there were a lot of conversations, very mutual, and the Vikings just kind of decided, look, he wants too much is what's going on here. And the Vikings, I'm glad they didn't bite on that, because they'd be in salary cap hell. That's basically how I would put it. And, the thing is, it's like, well, you said you're going to take a hometown discount and, things like, it's like, I don't know, it leaves me scratching my head a little bit, right? I mean, it's kind of like, I was kind of hoping you'd take that, but the Vikings were in it all the way until the end. And, the thing is that it just got expensive. It got really expensive, and he's coming off an Achilles injury and everything like that. But, we wish him the best, and, if it works out for him in Atlanta, it works out. I mean, that's, I hope it works out, except against us, obviously. So we definitely talked about that. So, with that being said, we're moving on from Kirk. Current situation: Sam Darnold is a Minnesota Viking as of right now.
Yep.
And no offense to Nick Mullins, because, I mean, it's just, you don't pay a guy $10 million to sit on the bench. I mean, it's...
To ride on the bench, yeah.
And so, you have Sam Darnold, but we know what they're going for here, okay? You don't go and make these trades, Mikey, to sit at 11, right? And wait till 23.
Oh, yeah.
Granted, I mean, having 2 first-round picks, we've had for, 2 first-round picks before, and even more so. But this, to me, you don't make the move with Josh McCown and say, there's connections with him and drakemaye. Okay, there's connections between McCown and Sam Darnold. Mm-hmm. They're trying to make the move for drakemaye at first, but here's the kicker. The Minnesota Vikings have asked to do a private workout with jjmccarthy. So there's a lot of conflicting things. There's a lot going on here. Like, what the hell is going on with our quarterback? I mean, this, like I put in the lower third here, Mikey, quarterback or bust. So I asked this of you, and I asked this of the zoners as well. From what we've been hearing from the reports, from what we've been seeing and, everything like that, I mean, are we leaning more towards May? Or are we leaning more towards McCarthy? And we'll talk a little bit about the other guys in a second because I think they need to be factored in too. So, Mikey, what do you think? Is it May, McCarthy? What do you got?
I think it's probably like a 60-40 split for drakemaye right now. I think there's way too much in terms of who's in the organization right now for the Vikings to say like, hey, we're going to go with jjmccarthy. I think it is still fairly even, but it does lean slightly towards drakemaye. I mean, you just mentioned Josh McCown was a coach for drakemaye back in high school. KOC loves him. He's kind of like a stereotypical KOC quarterback, big arm, has to work on the footwork a little bit, but he can make all the throws. Needs a little bit of time. So you have Sam Darnold come in, who's been in a Josh McCown-like system before and a KOC-like system with Kyle Shanahan last year, to where you can kind of bring him up really easy. You can work on those mechanics. You can work on those little flaws that he has. And then whether it's this year or year 2, you can have him hit the ground running. I will say drakemaye is probably the quarterback that we'll go for. But I think it is dependent on what happens in the first 2 picks. Because I think the first 2 will be quarterbacks, but I think drakemaye is that third one there. And it depends on how much we are willing to give up and if we're willing to leapfrog like the Denver Broncos or get up to like the Arizona Cardinals spot or do a deal with the New England Patriots. There's lots of options. It's exciting and anxious time to be a Minnesota Viking fan because there's a quarterback. It's just which one are we grabbing?
So you make a lot of good points. The one thing I want to add to this too is that you don't make a move like this to, obviously talking about getting that other first round pick. You make this move to get in front of those teams that could potentially, do that. Basically, I think what Kwesi did here, and, I think you'll like this too. Kwesi, knows that right after the Vikings, I believe it's the Denver Broncos, and then the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. Basically, he just said, F you to those 2 teams. We've got ammunition to move up. So,
exactly.
It's basically like, listen, we're making sure that, A, if we want to get our guy and want to get, May up there, then they're going to trade up. But here, the biggest domino to fall, I think you'd agree with this, is New England going to ask for too much from the Minnesota Vikings to move up because they need a quarterback too. But the issue with the Patriots right now is they have a crappy team. Like, it's not good.
They have so many holes.
I'm not saying KJ Osborne's bad because we love KJ. I obviously wish him the best of luck in New England and everything like that. But they need a lot. Like, Gerard Mayo being, the head coach, and, he of all people should know, like, they got to do some things differently from what Belichick has done, and not saying Belichick's, doesn't know what he's doing, but, maybe the game has passed him by a little bit. Just saying. But let's not forget that if the Vikings can move up to that spot, at least to 3, they have to know, are they going to take May? Are they going to trade back with somebody else? If they're going to trade back, it better be with us, So it's so tough to tell, especially when the Vikings are hosting a private workout with JJMccarthy. Like, he'll do his pro day, but the Vikings want private workout. So, with that being said, you have a wide receiver that's looking for an extension. He's okay. He's
kind of good.
He's kind of good. He's probably your best player. He's looking, I don't know, $30 million a year or something.
Yeah, north of that.
North of that. I hope, it's my hope, and I think they have, that they have kept him in the loop on what they intend to do, because you have to get either him or McCarthy. Penix, I'm not totally out on. Bo Nix, hell no. No. I mean, that would be terrible if they went and did that, because granted, there was only one team that went to his pro day, and guess who it was? The Chicago Bears.
The Bears, yeah.
The freaking Bears. Like, what the hell is going on there? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So, no Bo Nix. For goodness sakes, no Bo Nix. But if I'm JJ, granted, Justin Jefferson, not trying to get it twisted here, but if I'm Justin Jefferson, I hope it's not like you either get May or that's it, or you either get McCarthy or that's it. I think if you get either or those guys, I believe JJ's probably going to sign that extension. Wouldn't you agree, Mikey?
Yeah. I would 100% agree. Yeah, I think JJ, Justin Jefferson, and we always have to stipulate now.
We gotta
figure out a different nickname
figure
for
that
these
out,
quarterbacks. Yeah. But I think 100% he is in the loop. He's in the conversation. He probably does have a say in terms of which quarterback would he prefer. Now, whether the Vikings take that and run with it, or if they want to go with their own way, that is to be determined. I'm not in those conversations, right? But you have to include him, right? He's your best player on the team. You have to re-sign him. Otherwise, like, why are we doing this whole trade up for the quarterback situation, right? But I think it's one of those two. I think Justin Jefferson has been very highly about either of them. I've heard things about JJ McCarthy from him for sure. Drakemaye, I think he's been a little more tight-chested about. I haven't seen a quote or heard a statement from Justin Jefferson on like Twitter or Instagram or wherever about like he'd be good with Drakemaye as well. But it's got to be one of those two. I think, like you said with Michael Penix, I think that'd be fine. I would not take him higher than 23rd, pretty much. I would think if you wanted to do something like that, say there's a massive run on quarterbacks and New England wants way too much, and somehow the Broncos, trade their entire draft or plus like their entire next year's draft to go to 4 to get JJ McCarthy. At that point, it's like, okay, we kind of have to figure out the next best thing. I think Michael Penix at 10 would be a reach. And 23rd wouldn't be bad. If we take Bo Nix, it's going to be like a Christian Ponder situation all over again, I think.
God.
Especially with it's not going to be good. I think I'm not very high on Bo Nix. He's got a lot more to work on than Drakemaye, and he doesn't have as much of the ceiling that I think Drakemaye has. And then like you have your other echelon of quarterbacks below it. Like you have Spencer Rattler. I think there's a guy out of Texas A&M that's out there. Maybe that's next year. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Right.
But those guys would be your day 3 picks, I think. I would not take them in the first round for sure. I think they're way too much of a project. Could they be starters? Could they be good? Absolutely. Like anybody can be good in any of these draft picks, right? But it's whether if they're going to be bona fide starters day 1 or a couple weeks into the season, or if you're going to have them sit an entire year or an entire 2 years, and then you throw them out there and it's still kind of like a work in progress.
Right.
So it's 100%. You got to take one of those two, because I think after that it drops off tremendously. I think Michael Penix has what it takes. It's the injuries that really scare me. Because he's kind of like, I heard a great analog. I don't know who said this, but he's like Sam Bradford. He's got all the intangibles. He's got a lot of the great arm talent that you see, but he's just not durable enough.
Right. So that was my thing with Penix, is the injuries give me concern. But when you have an old line like the Vikings do have with Darisaw and O'Neal, and the interior obviously is a question mark, but I mean, Bradbury has his moments. It doesn't seem like he is going anywhere. I wouldn't have been surprised if the Vikings said, adios, but Reisner's still not on the roster, which I hope that they address. but they did re-sign Quessenberry and Brandel, and Brandel got a good chunk of change. A lot of people are speculating he's going to be left guard, starting left guard. So, I mean, I don't hate it, but I just like the way that Reisner played this past year. And I think with having a good offensive line, like, I won't be super upset if they take Penix. There'll be a lot of other people that might be upset, but if they decide, you know what, I think he can be our guy, I'm all in. Like, okay, I see a lot of good things. I think when they ran into Michigan in the national championship game, you ran into a really, really good Michigan team. Like, they couldn't do jack, you know what, and he was hurt the whole time. He was fighting through, what he was fighting through. But I personally think that it's got to be either McCarthy or May here. And I'm fine with either. I don't want either of them starting week one unless they blow KOC's mind and McCown and Phillips their minds away and say, like, dude, he's ready. Like, we can get this guy going. I mean, it could be like a Russell Wilson situation. Not saying that they're going to draft someone in, like, he got drafted in, like, second, third round. But then literally that year he was upgraded to starter. I mean, right after training camp. So,
yeah, that's very rare.
It's very rare. But I personally think you let them sit. You let them take in the game, understand what's expected and whatnot. From what I understand, drakemaye, Mikey, is, they say, really good leader, gets along with everybody, and, UNC didn't really have that many, big name targets for him.
Yeah.
But now you're coming into a situation where, no big deal. You have Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson. Oh, by the way, we just picked up Aaron Jones, too. Ty Chandler, who I believe is a Tar Heel himself. So there is a lot of positive with that. And then McCarthy, people are talking him up, and it's like, well, Michigan would just only run the ball. But seeing a lot of what he did, he can make some throws, man. Like, there's potential there. There's a lot of good potential there. So
100%.
It's going to be interesting, and obviously we'll probably have our draft show like we usually do, and we'll have you on, and a lot can change from now until we finally get to the draft. We're only, let's see, today's the 20th, so a little over a month away.
Yeah,
a little over a month away. So a lot can change between here and now. But one last thing, then we'll move on to Wild here. Everyone's question is, and I believe this is, I would agree with this, but if they're going to make the trade with New England or whoever, or, depending on how things go, you probably make that trade before the drafts, before the, first pick of the draft with Chicago. So, I mean, that's probably the smart move to go with. As of right now, I mean, you have the Patriots, you have the Cardinals right under the Patriots as well. And I feel like that's your target, or you have the Chargers at 5, which, you could potentially make a deal there. Within that, those 3 teams, I think if you're only giving up the 2 firsts to get up there, and maybe some other picks and whatever, maybe even a player, who knows. I think Arizona, you can make a case for, but I think they want Marvin Harrison Jr. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think that's the pick there. Yeah.
That's the pick there. But you have to, the perfect spot right now for Minnesota probably would be New England. But if it's not New England, who do you think would be the next likely, the Chargers or the Cardinals?
I think it's the Chargers. I think the Chargers pick makes the most sense. I think you can easily do the 10 and the 23rd for that 5th. Maybe like a 3rd rounder next year, or another like compensatory pick that comes up along the way. But I think if it's not New England, and New England's probably going to ask a lot, will definitely be the first two, and then possibly like a second round pick, like somewhere down the line, or maybe even they want the first round pick next year, which I think that's a lot to ask. I think the Vikings are willing to do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked. I would say if it's 2 firsts this year and a first next year to go up to that number 3. But I think what makes the most sense is that the number 5, if New England's asking for like 4 first round picks, or they're asking for like, hey, give us 10 and JJ, or be like, okay, you can go take a long walk off a short pier, right?
Right.
But I think it's really what makes sense if that New England deal does not work out is that Chargers pick, because the Chargers need a lot of picks to reload their wide receiver core. I mean, they have Quentin Johnson, who is probably categorically the worst rookie wide receiver out of the draft last year. I think you could make a case for that out of the ones who were drafted, of course. But I think they need a lot of ammo to work with. The Vikings are a perfect target for that because we do have the first 2 round, the 2 first that we have this year.
Right.
Maybe we could finagle. Maybe we give them the 10 and then a first next year, so that we can keep the 23rd to maybe go pick up, an interior offensive lineman or a defensive lineman out there that could help really solidify that defense. Or if we're not super strong on the offensive line, or if like Breisner might not come back or anything along those lines, we can at least shore up some of that before we get to the 4th round, because we don't have a pick between the 1st and the 4th at this point.
Yeah.
So the Vikings are really wearing thin for draft capital. But long-winded, but it is definitely, I think the Cardinals want Marvin Harrison. They're not going to move from that spot. I think they really want another target for Kyler Murray. So I think the Chargers is the most likely spot if it's not New England.
So just to throw this out there too, I believe the Vikings have the 11th pick, not the 10th. So
yes, that's right. I forgot about the 10th.
No, you're good.
The Falcons have the 10th. That's a different conversation.
I think they're the 9th or 8th or whatever.
Are they the 9th? They're whatever. It's
whatever
one
they
of those
are.
two. Yeah.
One of those.
Well, it's one of those 9 through 11.
Right. Well, however that works. But in the event that, let's just say they're like, you know what, we're not feeling McCarthy. I don't think that's going to happen. Or no, excuse me, May. I'm sorry, May.
Yeah.
If they're not in, they can't get up there for May. Okay. But Mel Kiper, his mock draft, and again, you take it with a grain of salt with mock drafts, right? I mean, it's just projections. But they have, Mel thinks that JJ is going to be right there at 11. I mean, you take 11 and then you have the 23rd. That's actually
I could see it. I could
good
see it,
scenario.
The problem I see with that is like that's in a world where the Broncos don't move up, and I think the Broncos are very high on JJ McCarthy, especially if New England wants to draft a quarterback this year,
right.
Which I don't think that's in their best interest to draft a quarterback this year. I think you really, like you said, you have so many holes, get a good team around, and then draft a quarterback next year, and get a stopback quarterback this year, so that you can at least, hey, we're going to compete with the AFC East. You're most likely not going to win it. Buffalo's probably too good in that. But, try to sneak into the playoffs if you can, with a good solid core, work around that. And then Gerard Mayo's second year can probably get a solid team around him. But the Denver Broncos is what scares me, for him dropping to 11. Because I think if JJ drops to even like 8 or 9, I would think the Denver Broncos would be like, hey, let's give whoever's there the first round this year, maybe a first round next year, to try to leapfrog the Vikings, because we know the Vikings at that point would probably just be like, oh, JJ is going to drop. That's the quarterback we like. Perfect. We get to keep 23rd, try to get either shore up that defense or shore up the offensive line, and let's go play. But I think the Broncos would probably try to spoil that. So I think it really is, you have to kind of one up the Denver Broncos. You have to like be one step ahead of them, play that one chess move ahead of them.
let me let me give some hope here because
Yep.
they have no picks.
They don't.
Gave
You're
up
absolutely right.
a crap ton of picks for Russell Wilson.
Yes, 100%.
And they're still paying for Russell Wilson right now, which is
funny.
insane in itself. So basically, Sean Payton has gone into the Denver Broncos and has made a huge mess of things. Yeah. So, I mean, granted, previous regime when they got Wilson, but good Lord, I mean...
Yeah, I know.
Good
it's
luck.
Just
I mean, it was that bad with Wilson. They just decided, screw this. But they don't have enough ammo to get up there. So I think if you're the Vikings right now, you're like, we got that extra first rounder. You try to move up. See if you can get above us. But I doubt you guys will. I mean, unless you want to give up your whole team for a quarterback.
Sean Payton's crazy enough to pull Mike Ditka on this one, just sell the entire draft to try to get above the Minnesota Vikings. I could see it. Sean Payton's a petty guy. He's super petty. I mean, he's probably still got a vengeance against the Vikings for what we did to him in 2017. I know. I 100% agree with you. Like, Sean Payton could, go fall off the face of the earth and I'd clap.
Right. I mean, that's why I'm not that scared of Denver. I mean, maybe Vegas, but I don't know. Vegas is, I mean, Vegas, they've got their issues too. So
I think they're in the same space as New England. They got a lot of holes to fix. Their defensive line is going to be really good, but they gotta shore up a lot of other areas first.
Yeah. I mean, Josh McDaniels was such a bad coach that it just, I mean, we'll talk about this in NRA with Jimmy Garoppolo, but anyway, kind of focusing on the Vikings, outside of the whole draft talk and everything, the Vikings made some moves, Mikey, even today, signing, Jihad, I think, is it Jihad Ward from the Giants?
Yes.
And then I think, Gruger Hill from the Panthers. I know a little bit about both. That's good. I mean, you add some depth to the linebacking core. You have Pace, you have Cashman, you have Van Ginkel, you have Grenard. I mean, some good depth pieces. And let's not forget, Shaq Griffin, baby. Let's go.
Yes,
I like it. I really like it. And he made the Pro Bowl in 2019, and he's played a couple of years. He was on the Panthers. I think he was traded to the Texans, or he signed with the Texans.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But a couple good depth pieces for the Vikings, and we'll see how it fares in training camp. I mean, do you like the signings that they've made after the big signings and whatnot?
Yeah, after the big couple ones. Yeah, no, I think the Vikings have really killed it this offseason. No huge names outside of Grenard. Grenard has been big on a lot of defensive-minded people's boards. I know J.J. Watt was huge on him, and a couple other people, but I think it's been very solid pieces. Nothing that's going to be like, oh, we're going to spend like $80 million on this one defensive player and completely revamp our defense. But everyone, I think, will fit a role, either playing or rotation, or starting or whatever. But I think Flores has he's like the grand architect of this defense.
Yes.
I think he's got a plan.
Yes.
He's got a plan for every one of these players. I think,
and he has depth for the first time. He has depth.
Yes, exactly. Last year he had no depth. He was playing cover zero almost every snap, and he was like, "Okay, I got to send all this pressure, and hopefully we have Brian Murphy hold the fort down with Harrison Smith back there." But I think he's got pieces at this point where he can change it up, kind of be like prime Mike Zimmer era, where you can bring a bunch of different schemes or blitzes, or you can bring everybody back and just rely on the front 5 or 4 to make that, get some pressure on there, and then just have the coverage sacks or interceptions or anything like that. I am a huge fan of a lot of these pickups, offensively as well. I think offensively they've done really well. Aaron Jones is a good pickup, especially just to make all the Packers fans seethe. That's the best part of that. I think Kwesi has killed at year 3. It's his defining moment, though. I think this draft.
This is the big year.
Yep.
So, basically, and obviously we like all the signings, and obviously we'll see how, the season pans out and whatnot. Yep. But Aaron Jones, obviously there's some health, concerns that I feel like, are addressed. But when he came back, he was lights out. He was damn good.
Oh, yeah.
And then not only that, with Jones, Grenard had 12.5 sacks last year. Can he keep that going? He's had some injury stuff too. So, obviously it's hard to put a grade on it, just because we got to see what happens. But you like what they've done, and I honestly think that this is a whole different. Daniil goes out, gets his money with, the Houston Texans. I'm sorry, I love Daniil, but I'm not paying. What was it?
No,
$48 million guaranteed for 2 years. So that is that's a $24 million cap hit on your, that takes up a lot of your cap right there.
Yes,
so I'm glad they went with Grenard and everything like that, because that helps. But Harry coming back, taking a pay cut, Hall of Famer in my mind.
No, 100%. No, first ballot.
First ballot, yeah. First ballot, Ring of Honor, obviously, and whatnot. So, shouts out to Harry. I doubted him, and you know that I doubted him.
Oh, I remember that draft very fondly.
Yes, you do. But I was so glad to be wrong. I do have a jersey now of Harrison Smith, and I was so glad I was wrong on that. So. Shout out to Dirty Harry, and coming back another year, he's still got something, man. I'm telling you, he's working his butt off, especially. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, and the leadership aspect of him coming back too, I think it's huge. I think it really will rally the troops. Yep.
Rally the troops. He's soft spoken, but I think he's kind of taking on that leadership role that he has in past years too, but even more so now. With that being said, Mikey, 100%. We'll get back, we'll get back to Vikings maybe at some point here. But the Minnesota Wild, Mikey, I know that, this isn't Vikings or anything, but I feel like this needs to be talked about just because, they had a lot of injuries. They fired Dean Evison earlier in the season. And, they kind of come back and then they kind of falter a little bit. They lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to, like, teams like Anaheim and, all these other teams. But now they actually have a chance to maybe make the playoffs. So my question to you, Mikey, and to the Zoners as well, do you see them making the playoffs? What percentage would you say at this point, and the Zoners as well, that the Wild will make the playoffs towards the end of in these coming weeks?
I would probably give them like a 20% chance. It's been the Wild have been in like this weird no man's land the entire year. I'm not super knowledgeable about them. I'm very casual with the Wild. But every time I watch, it's like, you should be beating these guys. We have Kaprizov. I get the dead cap hit. I think it's around 15 million, which goes away next year. So you have room. We have room to add pieces or sign Kaprizov if we need to sign Kaprizov. But we have been in this weird limbo state where it's like we're too good to be on like the bottom, but we're too bad to be like in the conversation for like one of the top teams or in the conversation for the playoffs. We're kind of on the edge of it now. I think statistically, I think there was something out there that said, hey, they could make it. But you'd have to have a lot of teams fall and you win a lot of games. I think it's not, hey, you have to win every single game, but I think it's close to that at this point.
Right.
But I want to be optimistic a little bit for them. I think the Wild could still try to get there. I'm not super hopeful. That's why I said 20%. I think they have the pieces. Like we've seen it all year. They have the pieces. Some games are super hot and they're like, whoa, where did this team come from? But it's just getting it all together is the hard part for this team right now. And that's why I'm not super high on it, but like if they made the run, I'd be like, oh, they're finally showing their true colors. Like they have the talent. You got to just put it out there.
Well, they pretty much have to win every single game. Almost.
Yeah.
Almost. I'm not saying
almost.
They almost have to win every single, because look, you're behind Vegas right now, which they're at 79. The Wild have to win tonight. They play the Kings tonight at 9:00.
Okay.
Sorry, but I'll probably be in bed by then. Especially with these West Coast times. It's just ridiculous. But anywho, yeah, look, I'm for my opinion, the dead cap hit, with the Kaprizov, the Suter deal, okay, like I get that with, Billy G and whatnot, but they did not. They had a stretch where, they played well when Coach Hines came in, and they were like a 5-game winning streak, but then they really dipped, and it's been up and down. Guys have been in and out of the lineup. It hasn't been a good year at all, and it's like, well, we can kind of chalk it up as a down year, but look. This team's too good to not be able to make runs and make the playoffs. I just think I am sick and tired of the Wild making the playoffs, and they're supposed to be good. They're supposed to be, going on deep and making deep playoff runs. But every freaking time they come up short, they go to the first round and they lose.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been a continuous thing during the Kaprizov and Suter years. I mean, I just want them to move on to the next round. I mean, it's just, we're hyping this team up to be this juggernaut. And, like, they're supposed to be dominating, state of hockey, all that. But they come up short all the time right now. And it's frustrating. And it's like, I mean, if they sneak in, I don't see them winning a 7-game series at all.
No, I don't either.
I don't even see them winning a game, if I'm being completely honest with you. There's a lot that needs to be done. When that dead cap rolls off, I don't want to hear any more excuses. No more excuses. Get what you need to get. Add who you need to add. I'm sick and tired of going in, just making the playoffs and then losing in the first round. I mean, you have the talent. You have Kaprizov. Make it work. You have to. This is ridiculous.
You have to make it work. Yeah, 100%. I feel you, because it's been like this for almost 15 years at this point. 2010
yeah.
we were
and
at
you
this
can't give us and for Wild fans right now, real quick, I'm sorry, Mikey, but for Wild fans right now, don't say, well, the Vikings haven't done any better. Well, at least the Vikings made it to an NFC championship game where the Wild can't even get out of the first round.
Yeah. Well, and the Vikings are interesting every year. It's historical what the Vikings have done their entire franchise. There's some docuseries, I think I sent it to you, where it's they go through. It's like the Vikings have. Yes, it's fantastic. But they haven't had a streak of 3 losing seasons the entire year. Now you could say that kind of the same thing for the Wild, but the Wild have been just at the bottom of it. They're kind of like the Steelers. They're always there, but they're not going to do anything with it, and that's super frustrating, right? Where the Vikings, it's heartbreak. It's heartbreak what gets us. We have the talent all the time. It's like, oh, the ref screwed us over. Oh, hey, it's Bountygate. Or hey, it's Nick Foles goes on a magical run or something like that. Yeah, it's always something with the Vikings. But it's the Wild just need to, especially after this year, I think you have to go all in on this team. You have to figure out a way to get out of the first round of the playoffs. Just make it to the second round. If you make it to the second round one year, I'll be like, okay,
Who
the
knows?
Wild
Maybe they go
finally
on a
did it.
run after
But-
that. I mean, yeah.
Maybe
Right.
they do. Exactly. That's what you need, but you need to get out of the first round. I mean, continually during the Parisi Suter eras, it was like, oh, we got to the playoffs. Oh, who do we play? The Blackhawks. Oh, we lose to the Blackhawks in 5. Oh, we lose to the Blackhawks in 6. Oh, we lose to the Blackhawks
That
in 4.
was- that
it's
was
like
a
this is it's
theme.
frustrating. It was a common theme, and I hated it. I hated
Right.
it.
Well,
But
it's
just
kind of like the Twins. They're very. I mean, It's
exactly
we're
like
happy to
Twins.
be here. That's what Voldy
Yeah.
calls it. Happy to be here, Twins. It's kind of like the Wild. They're just happy to
Yeah.
be there, right?
It's like one of these days we got to have a team where it's like, hey, we're going to go all in for 2 to 3 years, get a championship. Then I'd be fine, be like, oh, they got the championship. Maybe they have a couple off years where they go back down and they try to rebuild for another run like that.
Right.
It's kind of what you have to do, right? Unless you're going to spend like 80, 90, 100 million dollars a year on good pitching. But we'll get to that later for the Twins. But it's the same thing with the Wild. Like they have to figure out a way to get the talent here. And they have the money. They have the support. I mean, we sold out the XL Energy Center for God knows how long.
Yeah.
Everybody's fiending for good hockey, especially ever since the North Stars left. We had a couple good, like really good years early on, but now it's just been like we get close and then we fall off, and then we got to the playoffs and now we're out. So
Right.
it's just like make a run, satiate the Wild fans, because at some point we're gonna be like everybody's jumping ship to the new team on the block.
Right. So basically, they got to win now. Let's focus on that. And, I say this, I'm not trying to, I love the Wild. I like watching the Wild.
Yeah.
And I want them to do well. Obviously, both of our teams, like if we were to rank Minnesota teams for just us, it'd probably be the Vikings, right? But I mean, we're making
100%.
comparisons, but I want the Wild to finally just go all in and try to make this work. So we shall see.
Exactly.
We'll see.
The rants come from a place of love.
Yes, the Tough Love Covenant, and that's copyright another show. So, but with that being said, we'll see what happens tonight and the rest of the season for the Wild, and we'll keep you up to date with all of that. Oof, that was a lot to go through. That's for sure. With Tater Tot Hot Take, a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah.
With Hot Take tonight. So great job sticking with us with that. So no special segment, obviously, so we just go right into ARA. Just to give you a quick teaser here. Anthony Edwards, Michael Jordan finally speaks. We'll be talking about that. College football playoff will be with ESPN for 6 years. We'll talk about that. Jimmy Garoppolo is sorry for taking steroids, and we'll talk about that one. I got a lot to say with that. And then the Big East gets, a lot of the Big East teams for the NCAA tournament did not make it. We'll talk about that. And then finally, Blake Snell, the coveted pitcher that hasn't signed yet, finally signs with the team. We will talk about that as well. So let's get it going with some absurd or approved.
It's time for everyone's favorite segment, Absurd or Approved.
All right, it is time for absurd or approved. So Voldy, never mind. Shoot. Knee slapper. With that being said, I will rattle them off for us, please. We start off with our guy, Anthony Edwards. There's been a lot of talk. And not only has there been a lot of talk just about Ant in general, but the dunk he had against the Jazz on Monday. freaking
Unbelievable.
believable, man. Like, he was...
Great cash, homie.
He defied gravity. He dislocates his left hand, not his right hand. When he slammed it down, he didn't even I don't think he even touched rim for that matter. But Anthony Edwards has been unbelievable for the Minnesota Timberwolves. But even after that dunk, we'll talk more about that. And Mikey, I want to get your thoughts on this whole thing. Michael Jordan, MJ. There was Chris Broussard, and he's very well known. He's on Fox Sports now. He was an NBA insider for a long time at ESPN. He reached out to the GOAT today, Michael Jordan, and he said that Jordan said there are a lot of similarities in their games. He agreed. So if Jordan says there are similarities, there are similarities. So a lot of praise coming from Michael Jordan, which, again, we'll take anything that we can, especially since they are the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
So, Mikey, absurd or approved, do you agree, and what a lot of people have been saying, that Anthony Edwards is the next face of the NBA?
I think I'm approved for that. I think it is finally time to say the Timberwolves have arrived. It's been almost 30 years in the making, close to, probably even more than that, where we can finally say, hey, the Timberwolves have a team. It's been since 2003, 2004, since that Western Conference
KG.
final run with KG and
Cassell,
Zerbiak.
Sprewell, Zerbiak,
Yeah. It's exciting to be a Minnesota fan and watch the Timberwolves. It's very strange in my lifetime. When I was a kid, I was like, oh, the Timberwolves they're cool to watch. You got KG, one of the icons of the NBA. And now you see Ant kind of rise into that position. He is pretty much there. I mean, you have LeBron still here. You still have Steph Curry. You still have Giannis. You still have James Harden there, but Ant's in that conversation. I think he's been proving it all year, but more so with that dunk. I think that dunk is a highlight, a career highlight for him. I think that's really going to be the defining moment that says, hey, he is a superstar. He will bring people into Target Center. You go to see Anthony Edwards. The Timberwolves, and again, we talk about this all the time. They got to pony up for him. You got to sign him when that time comes around. But right now, it's an exciting time. We have a good team around the Timberwolves with Gobert and Cat. I know Cat's injured. Gobert's been touchy here or there some nights. But At's been solid. Ant's been not more than solid. He's been a superstar, and he can definitely bring this team to the next generation of fans and try to get us hopefully deep into the playoffs. If not, maybe a finals run in the next year or in the next couple of years.
So a couple things. One, it's interesting to me that a lot of people are noticing this right now. Well, we've been noticing it for the past couple years now. It hasn't happened for the national media to be like, oh, we got to take this seriously now. Like, the Wolves actually are kind of
Minnesota gets slept on. Minnesota gets slept on all the time.
They always get slept on, and I get it. Like, this is like a flyover team. Like, this isn't LA. This isn't New York. This isn't Miami. It's Minnesota. Who wants to come up there to Minnesota? Well, Anthony Edwards is giving a great reason why. And we talked about it before the show, Mikey. You're down Karl Anthony Towns. Probably your second option scorer and whatnot. You were down Rudy Gobert. Literally from last year to this year, just showed why he still got it, and obviously he'll be Defensive Player of the Year. Naz Reid out as well. All of your big guys, 3 of them, out. Who do you rely on? You rely on Ant. And Ant yesterday, even though they lost, and I told you this too, even though that they lost, they almost beat them. If Ant makes that 3, and I think because, again, you're going to miss some game winners. I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Kobe's
Michael
missed
Jordan
some,
missed
LeBron.
Michael Jordan.
I mean, but let's not forget that Ant almost single-handedly beat the Nuggets. And not to take away from our great bench that has been fantastic. Nikhil Alexander-Walker has been phenomenal. You have Jaden McDaniels. He's not coming off the bench a lot since he's mainly a starter, but he has been playing a lot better. Luka Garza from Iowa, for goodness sake, has made, did what he could against Jokic, but it's Jokic. He's a monster. So is he the next face in the NBA? Yes. It has got my stamp of approval. Look, he can dunk. He can score at will. His 3-point has gotten so much better than it was in previous years. Ant has really taken it on himself to be a better defender. He's getting steals. He's winning games by just stuffing somebody at the rim against the Pacers. He has been everything and more for this team. This team right now is doing 10 times better than any team in Wolves history. Like, more wins. They're already past the year when that snake Jimmy Butler was here, and then they're already ahead of the 2003-2004 team. So Ant has to be. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's only going to get better. The only tweak I'd make with Ant, just stop complaining about calls. Don't be like Cat. Come on, just stop.
Yeah.
We get too much into it, and the thing is it doesn't work out in our favor. If we keep doing that, complaining, we're not going to get the calls. A lot of these other teams do, but we don't because, A, we're the Timberwolves, and B, that we keep complaining. So, I don't know. There's got to be some way where they can try to figure something out with that. But with that being said, it's got my stamp of approval as well, Mikey. So, Ant is, we're going to be talking about Ant a lot. So,
for a lot of years to come, hopefully.
Yes, absolutely. So, stamp of approvals all around. All right, let's move on to our next one. Our next one is the College Football Playoff. Signs a 6-year deal with ESPN. They are signed on from, all the way up to 2031 and 2032. That seems like a long ways away, but apparently it isn't. Like, it's insane to me. Like, when I say that, I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what is that? Like, 2030, what? My mind's blown. So they agreed to a deal through that, and whatnot. So the interesting thing is $7.8 billion.
I know.
With and ensures that they have sole media rights. ESPN has sole media rights. As the holder of the event, and they're good all the way up till then. So my question to you and to the zoners is obviously assert or approve the college football playoff staying with ESPN for 6 more years. What do you got, Mikey?
I think it's approved. I think ESPN's got a good track record with college football. It's about the only thing I watch ESPN for these days, unfortunately. A lot of their talking heads or people, pundits or anything like that. Yeah, or lack thereof, exactly. You don't have that thing, but college football has been their driving force. They have Monday Night Football too. They have the NBA. A lot of people watch. I'm more just watch the Timberwolves or don't watch NBA. But I think it's approved. I like the people that they have at ESPN for college football. It always has that that air around it, or that aura where it's like, oh, hey, college football is on ESPN. Cool. We're going to go to ESPN to see it. You don't really say like, oh, I wonder what channel this is on. It's usually like ESPN. And then you figure out if it's not on ESPN, you go somewhere else. Right. So it's got my stamp of approval. I think it's going to be good, especially I've been watching a lot of the McAfee sideline ones. I think that's a big hit, I think, with what they've done there. So it's got my stamp. I think it's a good thing.
Despite all its faults that ESPN has, and obviously
there's a ton.
There are there's many. That I like this, and the reason why I say that is because they have. I mean, isn't the SEC network part of?
Yes.
Part of that.
Yeah, it's part of it now because they used to be with CBS, I believe.
Right. So there's been a lot of flip flop with games too, CBS and Fox and all that stuff. But this makes sense, and it's if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I mean, it's got my stamp of approval. With that amount of money, and especially that now that they're going to be, it's going to be changed to the 14, 12 team, whatever the hell it is, we're not going to get into it.
I know.
Because me and Voldy have already gone through that whole deal with the college football playoff. But it makes sense.
Yeah.
A lot of people will watch college football on ESPN. There's a lot of coverage with it. A lot of people do, or a lot of... they have the college game day thing is iconic. I mean, you with Lee Corso, who knows how many years, how long he's going to keep going. Kirk Herbstreit is always great. I always enjoy it. And, McAfee adds the, element that people love, right?
Yeah,
so,
that wrestling element. That's what I call it.
The wrestling element, and whatnot. So, it makes sense. Obviously, it's a huge deal. You're getting a lot of chicka cheese.
Oh yeah.
Through that. So, yeah, it's got my stamp of approval. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. A lot of people might, because ESPN, you should be on Fox, you're CBS. It's like, look, you're gonna watch it nonetheless. So
exactly,
it's that simple.
Exactly.
So, we'll leave it at that. So, yeah, stamp of approvals all around. All right, our next one, we head to the NFL. We've talked about this guy, a lot. And, Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't had the best career, I would say, so far in his career. Even add more insult to injury for Jimmy Garoppolo. He was talking to a reporter on Tuesday. He signed with the Los Angeles Rams, and he has to serve a 2-game suspension for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing substances policy was because he messed up the therapeutic use exemption when he first got to Las Vegas. So, with that being said about Jimmy Garoppolo, he's trying to stay positive about it and whatnot. But I'm going to do kind of an audible here with this because, granted, when I saw this, I'm like, why is he taking performance? Like, is it going to make him better by not getting injured? Because the guy's literally made of glass, to be honest. But my question is to you and the Zoners: absurd or approved, Jimmy Garoppolo is officially a bona fide backup in the National Football League. Mikey, what do you think?
I think it's approved that he's a backup. I think while I think he could be a serviceable starter, there's a reason why, say, the Vikings didn't go after him for trying to get him for his services, or any team specifically, that tried to go after him. He, like you said, is made of glass. He cannot stay on the field. And he's got a low ceiling and a low floor.
Yeah.
You know exactly what he's bringing. He's gonna probably get you 1 or 2 games where he's like, oh, maybe he's got something there, and then he'll go a game where he's 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and then he does like 1 for 1, one touchdown, 1 interception, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions all the time. So he just doesn't have the flair that he had when he was younger, like when he started those couple of games for New England, or when he was first at San Fran. I think it's really apparent that, like, hey, that Shanahan offense really does well for quarterbacks who are like him. You've seen it with Brock Purdy. I think Purdy has more. I think Purdy is a fantastic quarterback in that system. But Jimmy G just can't stay upright. He's not mobile enough like Purdy can be. He really needs to sit there and kind of survey the field like an old school quarterback.
Right.
And he shined the brightest in those Josh McDaniels offenses, really. I think he's kind of built for that Tom Brady-esque like offense where you just sit back in the pocket and dink and dime everybody and kind of just shred them in the short game, which a lot of teams these days aren't built for. So yes, I think he's a bona fide backup. I think he could be serviceable for a couple games if you like your quarterback gets injured or you need a spell or anything like that. But I don't see him starting in the NFL consistently and for the rest of his career.
So I'm glad we're on the same page here because this man has had opportunities. And granted, with the Raiders and everything, it didn't, pan out. And, McDaniels really screwed up that team. Like, absolute. Like, guys hated the guy.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't shy away from the fact that Garoppolo has been not himself. I mean, he got to that Super Bowl, but I feel like he was kind of the product of the system. But people figured him out, right? And now, and the Niners pretty much said, we want to get rid of him. We want to start over at quarterback. And, that drains his confidence and obviously his off-the-field activities. People know what I'm talking about with that. He should be focusing on being that I mean, shoot, you're coming from New England behind Tom Brady. And basically, Belichick at that time was like heir apparent. This is our heir apparent to Tom.
He wanted to trade Brady away.
He wanted to trade Brady away, exactly. So when you have that and when you're expected to be that guy and when the Niners pretty much say, we don't want you, that says a lot. Like So, but now that he is in a place where Sean McVay, he went and got Baker Mayfield and they literally just got Baker Mayfield. They play the Raiders and they beat them because, they figured out a way to have Baker be a somewhat decent quarterback. And that's tough for me to say, but it's true. So, I think with the McVay offense, I think he could, maybe have some, have somewhat of a resurgence, but I don't see him being a starter anytime soon. Or, who knows? Might not ever, to be honest with you.
I don't see it unless he has like a Kurt Warner style comeback.
Right. Or, Alex Smith. Obviously that took a while before he actually, got things into perspective. So, it's got my stamp of approval. He's a bona fide backup. Let's just call a spade in that sense. So, so we have one more here. We're gonna roll with the March Madness. March Madness is happening, Mikey, tomorrow. Even much so.
Tomorrow, first tonight, I believe.
Yes, yeah. The remember when they called it the first round? They're like, "Oh, this is the first round."
I do remember that. I was
and
like,
it's
no,
just
this
so
isn't
stupid.
the first round.
It's
the
like,
play-in
no,
game.
it's not. It's the to play in to get to the turn. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Exactly.
Anywho, there's a lot of controversy in the Big East Conference. A lot of teams did not make it for the Big East. And one of those teams being St. John's, Seton Hall. A lot of controversy. They did not make it in. They've had really good seasons. They got pretty much snubbed. In Providence, another team. You have UConn, Marquette, and Creighton. That's it. Who've made the Big East. So you leave out those teams, especially Seton Hall, who's beaten a couple top, They finished 20-12 overall, and they beat some good teams, and they didn't make it in. St. John's coach Rick Pitino, obviously we know, Pitino and whatnot, he disagreed with them not making it, Seton Hall and St. John's and some of these other teams as well. So he says he believes into getting better, not bitter. I like the way he said that. That's pretty good. Good thing to say in this sense for not, getting into the big dance. So, Mikey, absurd or approved? Did the committee get it wrong with leaving out St. John's, Seton Hall, and Providence?
I'm going to say it's a little absurd. If you get 20 wins, I think you have to be in the conversation, at least get to the dance, right?
Right.
It's hard for a lot of teams to get 20 wins. I mean, look at the Gophers this year, and people thought like they had an outside shot. Not a lot of people, but some people did. So for a 20-win team in the Big East, which is part of one of the bigger conferences of basketball, with UConn, with, like you said, Creighton, you gotta try to give them a shot. It's good basketball. It's not like you're gonna let in someone who's gonna, put up 10 points against, a 6 or 7 seed. Like, give them a lower spot and try to give them a chance. Certainly better than some of the teams I scrolled over as I was doing March Madness, right?
Yeah.
But
Virginia, that's one.
I'm like looking at it. I didn't even think about it, but I'm almost flabbergasted sometimes when I was like, wow, a 20-win team didn't get it. It's almost like you think about it. 20 wins should almost guarantee you a spot in the dance, unless you have like egregious losses along the way. Like you lost to like a team who won 3 games or something like that.
Yeah.
But I say it's absurd. I think the committee got it wrong. I think they have to redo whatever criteria or algorithm or something like that they use to calculate this, and I think they have to take another look.
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're completely, the NIT is pretty, well, I'd say somewhat meaningless, but if you're a team like the Gophers, they were terrible these past 2 years. Awful. Terrible.
Yes.
This year, they finally did something. I don't think it was up to the par of being NCAA tournament worthy, but NIT. They won. They beat Butler last night, I believe, by 1, too. So there's progression there, and you're seeing growth with that team because this year was a big year. So they got to build off that next year. But, I think it's silly, especially Seton Hall, being a team that usually is in it. Providence is another team that's usually within it. St. John's, another school that's in it with Pitino. And I like the way he put it. He didn't necessarily try to bash anybody or anything like that. I mean, if you're just a little bit better in one of these games or this game, did they get robbed? Yes. Do I think it's absurd that those teams didn't make it? Yes. But you know what? They're not going to change it. So, yes, they did get it wrong. Stamp of approval there. But I don't know if they're going to change the criteria. But the one thing I don't want them to do is to add more teams to this whole
you can't. There's too many at this point.
There's way too
many 72
teams.
teams at this point.
Right. There's way too many teams already.
Yeah, way too many.
Keep it the way it is, because I think there was some talk of that, and it's like you got to stop doing that crap. Like, it's just I mean, it's kind of like with the college football playoff. It's ridiculous. So
yes.
But we all know money. So with that being said, I mean it's absurd, but it's absurd that they didn't make it, but it's got my stamp of approval that they got it wrong. So we'll go with that. So that's all we have time left for, because the other ones pretty much listen, real briefly, the next one we had was Blake Snell headed to San Fran. I think it was a 2-year deal, $62 million. The Twins weren't going to shell out that money.
No.
We all know that. So basically, you know the deal with that. They should have won and got him. Shoot, you have all these injuries that have happened to your team with the guy that you got from Seattle in the Polanco trade. Oh, by the way, you didn't have Louis Varland didn't look good today, didn't play too well. You had the opportunity to get Blake Snell and have a really good pitcher on your hands, but nope, you don't have enough money to do that. Even though you do, and you hoard your money like those damn Pohlads do. But here's the deal. You know the deal. Is this a move that the Twins will regret not making? Listen, stamp of approval all around. They will regret it because you need pitching. Pitching. Mikey, anything to add quick to that? What do you got?
I mean, no, you've said it clearly. We've said it clearly. It's like you just got to shell out the paycheck. If you want a team to compete, you got to pay the players. It's not a hard concept to get around, right? You have Blake Snell. He didn't want, like, what did he get? 2 years, 62, something like that.
Yeah, 62 million.
That's not absurd for a starting pitcher, like for a top, a top
need it.
guy.
We need
it. We need it. I don't understand the Twins' philosophy. It's like, oh, we want to be in the conversation to drive people to the seats. At some point, people are going to get apathetic towards the team. And then what do you have? A very middle-of-the-road team that doesn't drive people to the seats. And then you turn out like the Oakland A's, and then they move away. It's just so frustrating because the Twins can be good. It's just they gotta start spending money.
The Pohlads need to go. That's the only way
Yes.
that this part. And the thing is it's not going to happen anytime soon. I wish it would, but it's not. And that's the grim reality. But I will keep ripping them until they finally say, grow a set of balls and say, we're going to go all in. We want to win. They haven't done that.
Yeah,
They're on the freaking Forbes list. You are hoarding your money. You are hoarding it. Why even own a team? I can't get into it because we're going to be here all night. So, so that was technically we just did it. That's our last one. Absurd approved. So, great job with that, Mikey. We usually do Shield shoutouts, but Shield is not here. So,
shout out to Shield.
Yeah, shouts out to the Shield. Yes. Obviously, we are over the moon that Tate is going to probably be wearing a Zona onesie and everything like that, looking all fresh and whatnot. So that's going to be cool. Yeah. So yeah, shouts out to Shield. He'll be back soon. We'll have more fun and everything like that. But thank you to Mikey for filling in tonight as well. So well done, sir. And obviously. This draft is huge, man.
This
huge. Draft is huge.
I just want it to come. I want it to be here. I want to know. And then dive in.
I do too. I do too, man. And we'll keep you up to date. We'll obviously have you on and whatnot, so we'll be talking with that. But without further ado, you know the deal. We've got merch, people. We've got sweatpants. We've got shirts. We've got stickers. Mikey's wearing the quarter zip. Looking pretty fresh right there. So it is super comfortable. Make sure you check that out. And I'm wearing it too, obviously, because it's that
I love this quarter zip. It's great.
We still have some left. Let us know if you'd like one. Sweatpants, same deal. Shouts out to Lucas. Let's not screw it up. Skol Vikes. That's what I'm talking about, man. That is what I'm talking about. Obviously,
You like that?
we like that even without Kirko. But sweatpants are the best. Let's go. Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, you name it, 5 out of 5 stars. Everything that we have. The limited edition hats. We've got the shirts, we've got the tumbler, we got the winter caps, even though, well, technically winter is coming back, so you might need a Zona cap this weekend. That's for sure. That's for sure. So we can hook you up with that. We'll give you prices and everything like that. But without further ado, shout out to W2 Performance, Will Rattel, at www.w2performance.com. Make sure you check out his stuff. And thank you to National Fleet Graphic, Crown Rental, Tyler Knudsen, for the stickers as well. And then shout out to the Breaking Into the League podcast with Ryan Martin and a guy that we know well too, Sam Gabrielli. Gabs, our guy right there as well. And shout out to the victorious P.O.D, Tyler Hermann, Jack Vickers, who you know very well as well. They got the Fantasy Football podcast going on as well, so make sure you check them out. And then TLS Performance, Troy Stoudemire Jr., our guy, still doing big things and whatnot. Make sure you check out his Instas, his socials medias, the whole deal. And then Popcorn Bucket List, Nick Dahlhoff, Ryan Myhrberg, Omni Entertainment. Make sure you check those guys out. A lot going on with them, especially with the Oscars. So make sure you check out all the latest stuff with them. With that being said, that's going to do it for episode 186. And again, thank you to Mikey for filling in the Shield tonight. And like we said, there's going to be a lot of news coming between now and then. Specifically Vikings, Wolves, the whole kit and caboodle. So without further ado, as always, remember, folks, keep in the zone. Holla!
Thank you for watching MinneZona Sports Live. Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. for live show broadcast. And as Voldy likes to say, follow us on all the socials medias.